I'm being asked to talk about something that I really don't understand very much. But it is among the most powerful things I experience in the world. And I think I may have talked about this before. I often say that to you. But I want to go through this because this seems important. It may not register right away. It may not register for a while. It has to do with the extraordinary, real and symbolic value of touch. And I cannot describe enough how central the experience of touch is for us in this world. How emotionally significant, how core it is to the infant that is born into this world, how we all begin this journey with touch. And it does something to us. It affects us. There is a deep emotional response to touching and being touched. One of the interesting demonstrations of that for me recently was the documentary that won the Academy Award, actually, and I voted for it, called My Octopus Teacher. And some of you have seen it, some of you haven't. I guess it's a spoiler, but kind of doesn't matter. There is a moment where this man who has studied and pursued this octopus for quite a long time arrives at a place of interaction with the octopus that is clearly built on trust and faith and recognition with an octopus. And the octopus takes one of its long arms and reaches out to this man and moves his hand around his arm, around the man's arm, and touches. It is an act of such delicacy, immediacy, intimacy, and caring and love that for me, and I think for many other people, because it won the Oscar, it is profoundly touching, which is an interesting word when you talk about touch. Why is something touching? Because it has affect, because it does something to you. Something inside responds to touch, both being touched and sharing touch. When we sit to meditate in classical meditation mode, one of the things you do after crossing your legs is you take your hands and put them on your knees. And what do? You close your forefinger and your thumb together. And that creates an experience of closure, connection, being inside yourself, being alive, feeling. Something happens when you do that. And I would suggest even now as we're talking, do that. Some of you will have the experience immediately. Some of you won't know what I'm talking about because it just feels like, oh, I put my thumbs together, I thumb and finger together. But if you do it with consciousness and really feeling, you will feel what happens when the tip of your finger touches the middle of your upper part of your thumb. There is an experience for me of such presence, such gratitude. And it is so filling, even of the entire body cavity, if you do it with real consciousness, that you feel this enormity of love, caring, well-being for yourself. And then, here's the miraculous part of it, slowly letting your forefinger separate from your thumb, like just a millimeter or two or three or four, and watching that feeling magnify. It grows out of the disconnect. It grows out of the separation, so that this feeling of connection to yourself opens up and it begins to be bigger. And it begins to be something that expands beyond your body and allows you to feel somehow larger than the connect. The disconnect becomes profound. You don't know how so much feeling can exist without contact. But the disconnect is, in a certain way, a connection with the greater reality of our lives. And then, if you want to begin to play with that, start to watch what happens when that energy is shared with people. Like when you open to somebody, in our culture, you point at somebody, which is actually energetic. And what takes place is a lot of people get angry because they experience the pointing. There's a connection that they don't want. But if it's loving, agreed upon in a meditative sense, and you open and then begin to share this openness with others that is radiating out of your pointing finger, and your thumb, you begin to delve into the magnitude of possibility, and you discover that your other fingers are doing it as well. And that your whole hand is transmission surface for sharing yourself with another, for touching both physically, like with a hug, a handshake, a tap on the shoulder, a laying on of hands, a comforting in the chest. Certainly for sexuality, this is one of the great ways of connecting with another being in a way that heightens your reality. And it heightens it so much that what is shocking is that the physical touch amplifies when you stop being physical. When you lift yourself back into being and touch becomes pervasive. You are touching life. You are touching the world. You are touching others. You are touching yourself, and you can touch yourself without being physical. You can actually remove the physical, and the touch becomes more powerful. And I tell you this for a lot of reasons. One of them, a lot of us are good at touching others. And I will claim this for myself as well. You can forget to touch yourself. And I know I was driving the other day and feeling things you feel in life, that, oh God, oh this, da, da, da. And I was just like, I don't want to do that really. I didn't want to be in that space. So I just went, oh, boom. I just touched myself. I touched. And it was like, I was removed from the mind. I was removed from thought. I was brought back into connect with myself. And then I did the opening, and it went deeper. And suddenly I was driving the car through time and space, beauty and manifestation, wonder and awe. And all I had done was that. That's all I had done. Oh. I know I've been doing this for a long time. I was never trained in this. Nobody ever taught me to do this. Rudy did a lot of manipulation with energy through his hands, and I watched that, and I used to do that as well, and still do. There is a lot of unbelievable dynamic in energy work with your hands, but the simplest energy work is touch yourself and feel the response of letting that go. And see how big it gets, and see how still pointed you get, and see how calmed down you get, and see how grateful you get. And you go, oh, oh. This is a simple nothing. It's a simple nothing. On the other hand, it has real properties. And when you connect to those properties, it will change you. The spiritual journey, which seems like something so amorphous, and meditate and sit under the tree and, or wherever and do this every day and take your breath and do all this stuff, which I recommend. But if you want to get to the heart and soul of so much of that, just put your thumb and forefinger together and go, oh, watch little babies do that. My very first picture of my son Ari is going like this. And he's maybe a day old. Where did he learn that? How did that picture come into being? He knew what we all basically know, that we are out of touch with ourselves in many ways, terribly out of touch. We live in our minds. The minds are endlessly involved in the outer universe and in the noise that they make all the time in trying to relate to the outer universe. Excuse me. And we're lost. What am I doing in this outer space, which seems to be so problematic? And how do I get in? Well, yes, there is meditative teaching. There are breathing exercises. There are places to go. Most people don't know how deep they can go or how profound the chakra system is that you can get out of your mind. I've been watching other teachers recently, and I'm really intrigued by it. There are teachers who are amazing, but they teach analytically about your mind. Let go of your mind. Let go of your mind. Well, easier said than done, of course, letting go of that thought process. Breathing seems to be effective, but it's kind of non-directed. You breathe and you go inside, and that seems meaningful, but it's very mind-focused. There are teachers who teach all heart. Go into your heart. Feel this thing in your heart, which, yes, is very powerful teaching. The heart chakra, the third eye mind chakra are really potent, but you have other chakras. You have a belly chakra, which is intuition and drive and power, which needs to be addressed, which needs to be dealt with. The sex chakra, which is about recreation, because you are going to be disassembled over and over and over again. If you're a spiritual seeker, they're going to take you apart and you're going to be restored. That energy is sexual. There is this energy at the top of your head that really opens you up to infinite being and possibility. There's a place in your throat that allows you to connect with others through verbal, energetic sound waves, which is really amazing, to speak clearly or not clearly, to express yourself honestly or dishonestly, all works from right here. And then at the base of the spine, of course, the connective tissue of Kundalini, which rises up your spine and puts all these things together. It's an amazing, amazing system. If different teachers will probably attract different students based on their different needs. I understand that. I love the Rudy practice because it deals with all these centers. It digs you a way to go in. It takes you to all these places. It gives you a way to open and expand them. But I'm adding to all that something very simple. And it's at the core of every human experience, which is touching and being touched. And in life, if you start to look at how important the touch is, like during the pandemic and no hugs for many people, that was massive, no hugs. A lot of people move into, let's say, the masturbatory world of touching oneself. That's very manifested and external. It satisfies, it brings many people to as good a place as they can ever get in the outer world. But the touch that leads you to yourself is right in front of you. It's right in your hands. And all you have to do, touch the forefinger to the thumb, and you feel it. And then if you want to expand it beyond that feeling of feeling connected, disconnect, and it doesn't really disconnect you from anything really except your material self. It connects you to the whole self. This opens you to everything. And it will be reflected, my experience, in your heart, in your third eye, in your throat, in your navel chakra, in your sex chakra, all of these things respond. And I find when I sit down to teach class, I sit here and I start by thumb, forefinger together, sitting, and I start to feel a complete, full-bodied awareness of being, just being in a body, being alive, being in a world, being in a space, being with others. And it's really, really stunning, stunning. And then the class begins when I let go. I open. I let go of the touch. I know I am. I know I feel myself in a physical, biological sense. But when I let go of that, everything starts. I am connected to the totality. I am connected to what is. And the what is still in a way biological, but so much bigger than the biology. It's so much bigger. It's so beyond the physical self. And it is a doorway for us that is both inner and outer at the same time. And in a way, it is the passage to that which is beyond and within. Just this. It's too simple. It's just too simple. And I know a lot of people can't do it. They go, no, nothing happening really. And I go, okay, this is where practice comes in. This is where spiritual life comes in. I can imagine that I would not have had a clue how to do this when I was a younger person, but it has evolved into the simplest of teachings. And so I share it with you so that one day you're driving in the car or you're sitting at dinner with someone, you're going, oh my God, what am I doing here? Or you're in class at school and and you're like bored out of your mind or whatever it is, and then you just go, oh. And it changes everything. It just changes everything. You are home. You have touched yourself. And I think we were born, I think we come into a body to touch the world, to touch it. Of course, to see it, to hear it, to smell it, and all of that. But a little baby, it wants to touch. It wants to touch, and we want to touch. And we want to be touched. So touching yourself is the beginning. Touching another is the great Buddhist teaching. How do you touch another? Half the time you can't, shouldn't, it's inappropriate to touch. So what's invisible touch? What's invisible touch? It's this. And I look at people, I look at all of you on the screen, I look at those of you in the room, and I let go, and the touch starts to waft out. It's called compassion. It's called caring. It's called love. It's called being with the other. And you discover that the universe wants that. And when it happens, when you connect with another person in this way, there is a kind of chord that's struck, which I talk about a lot, this incredible, oh, maybe the Om sound is it. It's like, oh, and you are one with totality. And it is like, you have come here, you have learned to serve, you have learned to be part of the universe, and now you have learned through reaching out that you are one with the universe, really one with it. This is the gift of spiritual practice. If you don't have this, if you haven't learned to go in, if you haven't learned to touch, if your touching is always about slapping or grabbing or whatever, what people do, just, it doesn't get near what touch is about. It doesn't get near it. Slow down, get into meditative state. Put your forefinger and thumb together as you sit here and feel right inside in this passageway between the chakras. Feel what that is and put it into use. And when you start to get really open, this directive will start to come through you. And I've been feeling this more and more, especially as a teacher, but also just as a person, to open to and do the thing that reaches out to touch. And sometimes the touching is an email. Sometimes it's a thought about somebody, but it's really interesting. I can reach out to people I care about and think about them, and then I begin to feel them, and then I begin to touch them. They don't know it. You guys don't know when I'm reaching out to you to touch you, but I know that I am, and I know that it's working, and I know that I am being directed to do that. As I am directed to touch, it solves so many problems in the universe, because you can't be everywhere, you can't do everything, you can't march every march, you can't sign every petition, but you can sit there and open, make yourself available, and then touch what's there. Touch it. And half the time, touching has specificity in it, and half the time, touching has no specificity. It's just reach out. You know what comes into that? It's really interesting. A bird flies through it, a fly comes into it, the blade of grass moves, and you feel you're touching it. You are that. You are in touch with and are literally, figuratively touching time and space. And you are one with being through the experience of touch. It is powerful beyond imagination. And if you want to be a spiritual being or a teacher of spiritual work, understanding the difference between this and this is everything. And in the end, as I've demonstrated multiple times, my mother-in-law's gift to me was, it's the opening into everything. It's the opening and the awareness of, the strangeness of, acceptance of all there is. And it's a touch. It's not a thought. It's not even really a feeling, although it contributes to thought and feeling and intuition. But it's its own very descriptive and physical thing. And it has as an element in it this extraordinary sense of beauty, truth, simplicity, compassion, gratitude. All those things are right in that. If you understand what I'm talking about, I'm grateful. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, I apologize. I can only put it out there right now in terms of words and in terms of the transmission of the class, but it will take you sitting down and doing it. And it really, I offer it to you because of my car ride the other day. I was having a hard day, and yes, I have hard days, and I think I've shared that with you before. I don't like emptiness completely. I don't like the loss of everything which occurs. I don't like it. And I keep trying to dissolve the person who's reacting to not liking it. And that some days works better than others. But you know what works? Oh, that works. Thumb together, forefinger. You are being touched by yourself, egoistically, spiritually, cosmologically. The manifest and the unmanifest come together in the touch and the letting go of the touch. It's all there. So, as you know, I could elaborate for another hour, but I'm not going to. This is what I wanted to share. I'm open to any questions about this, but it truly is about as simple a teaching as I can give. And it really has durational power. This will be there for you at any time you can remember. That's the mind. That's the good thing about the mind. To do it. Just go there. You don't have to even ask. Just, and it will happen at some point. Anybody have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Erica.
Yeah, so I really think I understand what you're talking about. And I I have a friend who was having a hard time because of the pandemic because he couldn't hug his friends. And I I'm Japanese, so I said to him, like Asian people don't really touch that much, and like we don't Japanese people don't hug, but we still really connect with each other. And then he said, "Oh, Japanese people have all these messed up problems because we don't touch each other," and so it really brought, and of course that hurt my feelings, but um, I think I really understand what you're saying, but I still can't help but feel like, oh, because I'm Japanese, I have hangups about touching people, and um, I think what you're saying is you can really touch people even without touching, and I just wanted to get your feedback on that because obviously I have issues around this.
There's a reason Zen Buddhism formed in Japan. It's very inward. It's very, very inward. It's very surrendered. It's very letting go, and it doesn't have anything to do with touch, as far as I can tell. I don't really know the culture all that well, but I can tell you, I said there are two parts to this. One is this, and the other is that. And being able to touch people without a physical connection is in many ways deeper than the physical. This is the easy part. Physical touch, oh, I feel it's wonderful, beautiful. Not doing that and feeling is profound and subtle, and gets subtler and subtler and bigger. So it's not cultural. We're all humans. We're all part of the same universe. There's so many different kinds of hugs. I have a friend whose wife, she hugs me and pushes me away simultaneously. I've never had anything like it. It's like, get away from me, but I got to give you a hug. And it's such a cross current of misinformation that I don't know what to do with that. And then there are people who hug for too long. There are people who hug in so many wrong ways, and inappropriately. So there's no law rule here, and it's not a cultural thing, but the experience of what Buddha would call compassion is in many ways what one senses in the letting go of the connection and being, just being. And that starts to infiltrate the totality of everyone and everything around you and actually registers. It really registers. I talk a lot about presence, and being with people who are not connected. You can't have a dialogue about spiritual anything. You're just sitting at the table talking about God knows what, and it's kind of mindless. And then if you're just present with them, which is a kind of touching, the thing lightens up and a sweetness starts to happen, a kind of a flow, a kind of a dynamic, and you start to feel touched by talk, by words, by the way someone looks at you, by the fact that they smile, by the fact that they open to you. That is a aspect of a touch, and it's really stunning and powerful and beautiful. And when you start to tune into that, you begin to realize how you as a person can affect a room full of people by just being present. It wafts out. It has a source, and you happen to be the source. I talk a lot about being a hose, and you turn on the water and the water flows. If you're in the room and the water flows through you, the whole room is getting, in an ideal sense, watered like a garden gets watered. It's nurturing, it's helpful. Otherwise you're flooding the space. Most of us aren't doing that. But you try to be a source of touch for people in the sense of the not touching. And it's really beautiful and it's really powerful. And you can do that. And your friend is, he's enlightening you in a way about what this is about. Japanese art is loving and wonderful as anybody else on the planet. That's all I can tell you from exposure and knowing you. Anybody else? Okay. 4th of July, guys. Have a wonderful Independence Day. Enjoy your independence to any degree that you might have independence. You really do, more than you imagine. And we're still in and remarkable in a remarkable country. So as long as we have that, take it in, celebrate, and and I love you guys. I love you so much. I appreciate your showing up. I didn't know if anyone was going to show up today, so the fact that you did is kind of wonderful. Celebrate, have fun, and be back in 2 weeks.